What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over some tips to hopefully help you win without cars in Fortnite Chapter 5. Because if you guys were unaware, the Whiplash Wild week, which started yesterday, completely vaulted the G Wagon car. And now the only car is the Whiplash. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful, informative, interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Comment down below what you think of this change, and if you would like to use my code in the item shop, it is just EvolveJake. If you do that when getting any sort of cosmetics or next season's battle pass, I would much appreciate it. I don't plug my code often, but I try to kind of towards the end of the season like this. So I've recommended using G Wagons for a lot of Chapter 5 because we've had high burst damage weapons in the meta the entire time. And what I'm mainly referring to is the Reaper Sniper, and this isn't a burst weapon, but it deals large amounts of damage in a very short time span. And so using a vehicle to travel around the map and kind of limit your exposure to something like that, I think was very beneficial. This season, we still have the Reaper Sniper Rifle. We also have water bending, and both of these weapons can punish you very quick if you are ever caught off guard traveling in an unfavorable situation. And the Whiplash car is in the game still, and it has replaced every G-Wagon spawn. But the thing about the Whiplash is it has less HP, I believe. It doesn't provide as much cover, and it doesn't handle as well off-road, especially when going uphill, which is going to be a big problem in any sort of inconvenient terrain. Probably going to have to use the boost more to go uphill, which in turn, again, makes the car less maneuverable and makes you run through gas. So I feel like just playing how I would play for a lot of Chapter 5 doesn't work in this update. And so just in general, playing without cars makes getting caught off guard way more of a problem, especially because of weapons like the sniper or the waterbender, like I talked about. So I think you really need to be, you need to try to be more intentional with your movement. Anytime you're traveling out in the open or an area that is exposed to multiple angles, you are so much more at risk without cars than you are if you have a car. So I think it's very important to try to navigate the map in such a way where you always have some sort of potential cover nearby, and just try to be way more aware of your surroundings, because for a lot of Chapter 5, I would just kind of drive around, and if someone shoots at me, we'll fight. And if not, I'm just going to keep driving around until I find somebody or they shoot at me. And that playstyle just does not work at the moment. You need to be way more intentional about where you are on the map, how you're going to get to where you want to go next, and what potential you cover you have in between you and where you're trying to get. And in situations where you can't really just have any nearby cover, I think it's important to walk with your shockwaves, your porta bunkers, your shield bubbles already out. That way you can react quickly, because if you do start getting water bended and then you have to swap to the shockwaves and then shockwave away, it's going to take longer than if you're just already on the shocks, you know? So if you do know, okay, this area is a problem, I don't have any cover nearby, but I have to get somewhere else, try to keep one of those items out. That way you can quickly react to getting shot. I think positioning and zone matters so much more without cars, because it's harder to get up those mountains. If you have a zone that's ending on high ground or ending on a mountain, when G-Wagons were in the game, you could just drive up and it's no big deal. But now the person who is already there is going to have a much easier time defending it. And because of those two problems that I just talked about, the fact that positioning matters so much more, and the fact that getting caught off guard at any point in time or having to travel through a large stretch of area with no cover is way more of a problem, I would highly recommend carrying Flowberry Fizz as your healing item, and then having Shockwaves as a mobility item, because you can Fizz Shock and you go so much higher and so much further. So anytime you're in one of those no man's land situations, or you have to approach one of those, or you have to get up a mountain or something, using a Fizz and a Shockwave can get you to go much further and kind of traverse that entire kind of danger area much easier, or get the potential position of advantage much easier. Also, carrying water bending or a thunderburst SMG with laser can be a nice combo with the Fizz Shock, because you can shoot somewhat accurately from the sky with those items if you do need to push somebody that way. Also, if you are trying to take a position of advantage from an enemy or an opposing team, you can shockwave them off of where they are to knock them off a mountain or out of a bush or out from behind cover. Little things like that can be really helpful when you don't have the safety net of a car. Um, I also think controlling the island that will spawn in fourth zone is more of a factor without cars being very impactful on the game than with cars being very impactful on the game, because it's harder for people to just get away for free. So if you're on island sniping at somebody or water bending somebody, they're going to have a harder time just bypassing that with the lack of G Wagons. But also you do have a launch pad on island, and you can kind of take that or a rift to fly to what you think will be a good spot in zone once island will no longer be in zone. So you control island fourth zone, you have, you know, a huge position of advantage. Eventually island isn't going to be in zone though, but because there's a launch pad and because there's rifts, you should be able to easily use the fact that you controlled island in fourth zone to be getting the good spot in like fifth or sixth zone, and then hopefully use that to win the game. And you can use the Flowberry Fizz when hitting launch pad on island to go even further if needed and kind of get that ideal location. And there's also several naturally spawning launch pads around the map. I'll have a picture on screen now. And with cars being less of a factor in the game, you might be more inclined to use and take advantage of these to kind of get out of some of those bad areas or get to a potential, you know, good spot in endgame. Earlier, I kind of talked about how you need to be more intentional with your movement in terms of like utilizing cover and how exposed you are. But also, since you don't just have the car for cover at any time, like that becomes very important. But I think this is also very true in terms of like how you use your sprint and how you use your dashes as well, because if you have Grim Gate Medallion, you can kind of use dashes to travel and it's no big deal. But if you use all your dashes just to travel and then you end up getting into a fight and you don't have dashes for the fight, that's not ideal. And then the same goes with sprint. If you're just sprinting around constantly and then a fight breaks out and you're at a sprint, it's going to make it harder for you to play that fight, right? And with utilizing cars all the time, one of the nice things about it was like not only were you harder to snipe or water bend, just getting caught off guard when it ended your game immediately, you always had some potential cover until your car is destroyed, but also you could travel around the map and not have to worry about utilizing sprint or dashes. And so you would just always have sprint and you would always have your dashes if you have the medallion when a fight does eventually break out. And I feel like this is something that like you need to consider a bit more, traveling on foot more often. I think also just sticking with your team and team game modes is a little more of a struggle in carless Fortnite than when cars are a big factor. Again, the whiplashes are a thing, but in squads, it only holds 2 people. And if you have all 4 people in a G Wagon traveling around the map, it's very easy to just kind of keep y'all together. You know, if one person is kind of straggling, one person is going too quick, it doesn't matter because y'all are all in the same car. But utilizing cars less, there's more potential like separation problems that can arise. So you might need to be more mindful of sticking with your team, whether that's not kind of falling behind or if that's not getting ahead. It goes kind of both ways, you know? And then the final thing, I feel like car fighting around the Whiplash isn't as beneficial as the G Wagon. I'll still do it sometimes, but it's not as good, I think. And one thing you can do if someone does get in a Whiplash to try to get away from you is you can get in with them, and from the passenger seat of the Whiplash, you can just like aim down sight and start shooting the driver. And this will potentially catch a lot of people off guard because if people are used to just getting in a G Wagon and driving away, it doesn't work the same with the Whiplash. So kind of keep that in mind and maybe take advantage of the fact that you can shoot the driver from the passenger seat of the Whiplash. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. I talked about this a lot in yesterday's video, but I still wanted to make a dedicated video for people who might not have watched yesterday's video, who've been struggling, kind of see this on their recommended page and they're like, you know, that's what I need. Since I've recommended cars so much, I thought a lot of you guys would potentially be impacted by the change. I've used cars a lot in chapter 5, but personally the car meta was never really my preferred way to play. It was just like the way to combat the sniper. I felt like I've never really been a fan of cars in BRs, and one of the main things that drew me to Fortnite early on was that there were no cars, and it was a game that was just kind of designed to be play on foot, you know, player versus player, not like player in a car avoiding conflict. So I've used cars a lot, but it's not like it's my favorite thing ever. It's just kind of the meta was how it was. You know, it was the same way with the auto shotgun. I would much prefer the pump be meta, but that's not the world we live in. So I'm somewhat okay with this, but I would recommend trying to get used to playing like this, just because you never know what's going to change when a new season comes in Fortnite. I'll have a video probably in a few days or maybe tomorrow about kind of some mindset things you might want to have in mind when it comes to a new Fortnite season, but the meta can change in so many different ways. You guys see here, just vaulting the G Wagon might change how you have to play considerably, you know, so being open to those changes and being open to like adapting to those changes, I think is kind of important if you want to like consistently play and enjoy Fortnite and also just play well. But that is going to be it for this. I hope you guys found it helpful, informative, interesting. Comment down below what you think of the change. Give it a like, subscribe. Once again, use creator code EvolveJake if you would like to. I try not to plug my code too much because I know it can get annoying, but I feel like end of the season is an ideal time to be doing that. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.